heard all that. I think we need to go to a much lighter note at this point. It's been sort of like, somewhat serious now for the last few minutes.
Oh,
so,
yes.
So I think we should talk about something fun. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, some D&D action here. I mean, that's what we came here for. We're here for that D&D stuff. I want to hear about like elves and orcs and stuff like that. So let's talk about racist orcs.
Wait, I don't like. Are they the racists or?
Well, they're racist stereotype.
There you go. Tropes.
So there's a series of articles, or 2 articles now at this point, published by James Mendez Hodes, discussing sort of the origins of orcs, which sort of first appear in sort of the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, and then get adapted as a critical point into the world of Dungeons and Dragons later on. The first part of his first article really is focusing on sort of the initial myth of this, the orcs, and it coming through sort of at the beginning of the 20th century. Sort of, you're coming out of this Victorian high colonial period in Britain. You're dealing with the Great War. But you're also dealing with sort of embedded stereotypes in Britain at that time, especially about invaders from the East, harkening back to people like Attila the Hun and Genghis Khan from there. And if you read the descriptions of the early orcs, let me make sure. He puts it in a quote directly from Tolkien from one of his letters, letter number 210. Describing the orcs. The orcs are definitely stated to be corruptions of the human form seen in elves and men. They are, or were, squat, broad, flat-nosed, sallow-skinned, with wide mouths and slanted eyes, in face-degraded and repulsive versions of the, quote, I believe this is added by the author to Europeans, least lovely Mongol types. So obviously in that writing there, everything's shaking, evoking sort of very race science, late 19th century ideas of Caucasoid, Mongoloids, Negroids, that doesn't fall too far from our own domain. It's very much physical, early physical anthropology is very much of this field. We actually give the names to these things on here. So it's one of the interesting reasons that sort of caught my attention on this. Is sort of like, hey, our stuff's convoluting together in the worst way.
My human osteology books still have the terms Negroid, Mongoloid, and Caucasianoid in them. So
I have met professionals at museums who still use those terms.
Just FYI, we don't use those terms anymore. And if we are, we need to stop.
Yeah, we need to stop. They are still using those terms.
What about forensic anthropologists? So I don't know for sure, but I've heard some stories about Doug Owsley, but
I'm trying not to bring his name around. I was dancing.
No, hey, we talked about this before stream. We're running towards the cultural fire that we probably started.
What was I told the other day? It's more ethnicity. I mean, the word is ethnicity now, not race, because race is a social construct and complete bullshit. In a certain way, race is a fun thing to talk about. I have my serious lighting on me now. Whatever. I don't care anymore. But you just say white, black, and Asian now. You don't say Negroid and Caucasianoid and Mongoloid anymore. I had to actually think about it. I don't know if white, black, and Asian is any really better, but they're more recognizable terms for the modern era, and they are, I don't know, less negative. I know Asian really isn't the best word to use because it really does kind of just lump like a third of the planet into a group.
It's a very broad stroke.
Yeah, it really is very broad. But I think actually, like, didn't they start breaking down, haven't they started breaking out Native American now too? Like, that's its own category. I don't know. It's been forever since I took
Depends on what country you're in and which department you're in and what government agency you're in and all that kind of good stuff.
Because the books I have, like I said, my books are old enough that I think my books were printed right before the big theoretical shift away from using these terms to using new terms and away from the whole concept of race, and instead we're using ethnicity. So that's about when my attention stopped.
But the critical thing, like to go back to orcs, when you need to talk serious stuff now, we're talking orcs.
I keep talking about fantasy stuff like archaeology.
Serious business time. We need to talk orcs. Is that orcs? And I guess the first. I mean, we could jump at however we want to. We can jump back and forth between both articles. The second article gets much more into things like D&D and sort of modern interpretations of it, which takes it away from sort of an Asian stereotype into a nice American black stereotype. So it's sort of we took it from the British, that we Americanized it, so we put our own American spin of prejudice on it. And so instead of being like original orcs and the Tolkien thing are sort of small, thin creatures, your typical orc in a Dungeons and Dragons world, it's going to be this big, burly, martial, muscular creature. It's not very smart, but it's very uncanny. I'm going to go grab my monster manual right now to see if I can find an orc.
I think we also need to kind of just for people who are not anthropologists or archaeologists or have any genetic background or whatever, race is not real. It is fully a social construct. The things that we perceive of as race are they're basically just common physical traits among I can't think of a better word than breeding group, but that is kind of the word for it, I suppose. That's not the right word though, is it?
No, that's not the right word.
Not community, because it's more specific than that.
It can be very specific to a community, though. I mean, if you're using community in like the broad sense, that's why I say stick with ethnicity, because a lot of ethnicities have common physical traits. I'm thinking like, European Jewish communities and the obvious ones, African and Hispanic community ethnicities and that kind of stuff. But the really tricky part with race is it's a complete social construct, and it will change depending on where you are in the world. Mm-hmm. But as far as being a social reality, race is very real, because your personal experience, your mileage will vary depending on what race you're perceived to be by the society or the culture group that you're in. So, I can sit here and say race doesn't exist, and then somebody who's black is going to come up and be like, excuse me, because their whole life is defined by their race. I mean, yeah, their race is completely socially constructed here in America, but it's
it's two things happening simultaneous. Yeah. One, it doesn't exist. Two, it is real.
Right.
In that it has an effect on your life. I mean, the way to think about it is the economy is a social construction. The economy doesn't exist. There is no such thing as money. Money is just a name we ascribe to an idea. If I were to walk out of here and say, well, money doesn't exist, it's not real, they're still going to want my car payment at the end of the month. It still has a very much real effect on my day-to-day life.
There's social agreements we've created.
Race is a social construction that feed into systems of power within our society, and they are made up out of whole cloth. They are imagined. It's probably the best way of putting it. They are imagined constructs, but they are very much real. People live, people die because of concepts such as race. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to diminish it in that way, shape, or form. But we want to make sure, if you take away nothing else, that it is not natural in any way, shape, or form. We are trying to denaturalize this concept for you. There's nothing innate about, anything you've ever heard about. Well, black people can do this and Asian people are good at that, and white people can do that. That's all BS. But on a systemic level, is your race going to potentially directly impact your life? Yes. Now,
But as you were saying, this does go back to the more serious topic of gaming, especially when it comes to I beat you to it. But the whole idea of race is real, and most fantasy style D&D games are. That was redundant, but anyway.
So would you call a D&D a raced realist game?
I don't know what race realism is.
I think it's just racist.
It's a white nationalist term. It's soft white nationalism.
Soft white nationalism.
Soft white nationalism.
They try to like come up with all sorts of different.
In the same sense that American culture in general is white nationalist.
Yeah.
And they're not. Let's stop using nationalists. They're not nationalists. They're supremacists. They're white supremacists.
Yeah.
Nationalism comes from the concept that they want America to be a white nation. Like, anyway,
back to Orcs.
Back to Orcs.
Back to Orcs.
Yeah, but the actual mechanics of fantasy style games, even in if people who aren't playing tabletop games, even if you're playing video games, a lot of times like you have to select your character race or species, and you get racial bonuses based on what you pick. And some races are better at magic, and some races are better at heavy weapons, and some races are better at, I don't know, digging holes.
Being angry.
And within the world.
I mean, like, how people play dwarves because they like to be able to drink other people under the table. Like, what are you saying about dwarves, man? But yes, I think it's very sad to say, but I think racism is inherent to role-playing games, but I don't think role-playing games are racist. Does that make sense?
I think it's the same kind of argument I was making before, in the sense that American culture is not. It's built on a racist concept, or was built by or in a racist concept, and therefore subconsciously it's always going to have some remnant of that without very drastic intervention. But yes.
So to bring in to bring in a little critical theory here, because if we're going to discuss serious things like Orcs, you must bring in critical theory. It would be safe to say then that things like role-playing games are always already racist because they are within the superstructure of a white nationalist system, or a racist system in general. So it's not inherently or intentionally. This is not a condemnation of any of the creators, including Tolkien. It's more of a reflection of the society. Like all art is a reflection of the societal times in which it is created. And art is a great barometer of judging what were social norms and acceptabilities during a particular time and place. And so, like any art, Dungeons & Dragons reflects that art of the late 20th century, United States, coming right out of the Civil Rights era, a very tense time. So it's going to be baked in, even if no one along the chain ever intended for it to be there.
Yes.
Jump in, babe.
All right, I'm sorry. I'm taking it all in. Also, it's still a little early here.
You could draw a Ford while you're doing it. So a proper, a more modern interpretation of an orc, maybe a more, where to step forward. I think Ford's a good representation of like what can we do from this point. Ford is a character on the streaming show Critical Role, who's a half-orc, which is a whole problem.
And uses a very that gets discussed pretty heavily in the articles that you posted.
I was really confused by those articles. I'm not gonna lie, because like he kept saying that you can't play orcs and you can't play half-orcs, and I think every game I've ever been in, someone has played an orc, or at least a half-orc.
Yeah, well, the half-orc has been in there for a while, but the whole concept is like orcs and goblins are inherently evil and cannot really be played as as normal player characters is starting to go away for sure, at least as part of the mainstream use of the game.
There was also the problem, since orcs themselves were not normally player characters, even in 5th edition Player's Handbook, they're not a regular player character. You need to get Volo's Guide. I'm just showing off how many goddamn D&D books I have to actually get the rules for orcs as a playable character. So the implication was also always never explicit, but the implication was always there that half-orcs themselves were products of some sort of sexual violence. Was sort of always implied there, which also plays into some of these other racial stereotypes, which first existed, not first existed, which exist in Europe towards people of the East, and the United States towards people of African descent. They sort of like they're coming for our women type of stereotypes.
I had
that's still
such
kind of a thing.
experience with role playing than y'all have, I think, because like I never picked up on that as a gamer, and my parents were gamers, so like I've never picked up on that.
I think it's also it really depends on the type of people that you play with, because in the article he talks about like a play test for 5th edition before it actually came out, and like the DM was pushing real hard for basically not using orcs as player characters, and then not and not considering them even as people, because there's like towards the end of the description there's the orcs are there's like orc raiders or something, they have to go bust them out of this cave or whatever, and at the end of it there's like orc children cowering in the corner, and one of them like goes up and kills one.
Yeah, one of the other player characters kills an orc child. And so the guy playing is like, roll initiative. He's ready to throw, and then the DM closes down the game right then.
Yeah, and the DM completely shuts it down. But I think that's also not the I don't know if that is a common
right. I mean, it sounds like a bad take. That sounds like a bad take.
There's that one guy, and it's usually the guy in every group who's just like the secret psychopath. So that sounds like, that's what that guy was. Or there's always somebody who's going to be extra.
I mean, the beauty of our role playing is that there's so many different kind of people, and so many people get different things out of it. There are people who play the game for the role playing experience and to get deep into their character and explore it. Other players are trying to min-max their stats completely so they can have be soaked in as much blood by the end of the session.
Well, you have to win.
They are the murder. They have to win the game. They are the murder hobos.
Role play.
You walk into the store, and the shopkeeper says hello. Your mage throws a fireball inside and blows everybody up.
Look, that only happens.
You loot the place.
I mean, to be fair, though, I think we've stepped away a little bit, kind of put a lot of the onus on the player. But, ultimately, when it comes down to, it's more of a critique of the system itself. And so far as we were saying, society, race being a construct and it being upheld, within that given, social sphere. If you look at D&D as a system in a whole, it works kind of on, in essence, categories and binaries, good versus evil, and, what is your alignment? And you've given a race, in essence, an evil alignment. And that's what in part comes out in that article, is the fact that we have, as a whole, within this D&D system, orcs are bad. And we've given them no agency in that whatsoever.
And I think an important distinction that sort of like absolves, would not absolve harm in the designs of these things, is that they mean race by the fact that these different races, or at least some of them in game, are allowed to procreate internally with viable offsprings, implying that they are of the same species but different races or at least neighboring species, so that at least in the base game, humans, elves, and orcs are all of the same species, just different races of that, where one is held as more intelligent and beautiful and grace-aligned with the elves, and the orcs are some sort of war-like creatures which aren't even worthy of being a playable character in the other ones. You're sort of half orc, which of course, that also brings up a troubling descriptions for anyone who is of mixed race descent. The sort of the for lack of better terms, and the only way I know how to describe it in American, which is, I know, so I apologize now, would be the concept of the half-breed, where it's the sort of liminal person who is an internal outsider. You see a lot in sort of American Western motif. You have the person who is maybe half Native American, half white, who is sort of your gateway character between those two worlds, but in the end doesn't belong to either one. So that's sort of what you hear, that half thing. That's what that archetype brings to mind.
I think part of the issue, going back to critiquing the game itself, is, like Amma was saying, the necessary duality and the black and white nature of it. You are good, you are evil. I mean, yeah, your alignments span, true good all the way to true evil, and you can be neutral in between. And most people prefer to play a neutral style character, at least in the groups that I've run in. But the game really encourages you to pick one side over another. I think this is why I prefer, once I got done playing D&D as a kid, I really started to enjoy the White Wolf games when they started coming out. And I'm sure there's a whole conversation that we could have had about those. But White Wolf was the first gaming system that I encountered where you didn't necessarily, there was a stereotype, and the stereotype existed because that was what everyone society thought of this group, and you were encouraged to create a character within that stereotype group, but you were encouraged to make your character an individual, because part of the whole point of the game was there isn't black and there isn't white. The game was all about the shades of gray in between. It was just also a horror-based game, so there were monsters, and I mean, you played werewolves and vampires and mages and fairies, so I mean, it's like not grounded in reality at all. But you didn't have to pick a species or a race. You could play non-binary characters, and actually, as the game matured, along with the player base, you did start to see actual rules for generating non-binary characters, and there's no such thing as racial stats in White Wolf. There is bonuses for the type of monster you are. Like if you're a vampire, you get different bonuses than the werewolf. So I guess that's still there.
That's a very different like mechanic though, and even socially, because you're not just inherently that thing. You like,
right.
Well, I don't know a lot of the lore behind White Wolf, but like for vampires and werewolves or whatever, they're more things that are like, they're not inherent. They're like a curse, or you're brought into society, or whatever whatever group we want to go into that. So it still pulls you away from that idea of that this is just who you are because of how you were born.
But
and like, literally the point of White Wolf was to rage against the thing that everybody said you have to be. And you can embrace it if you want to. I mean, it's your character, whatever. You can do what you want. D&D is set up in a way that, like, we were talking about Drow earlier. Like, what the hell are Drow? And we're like, oh, they're the fallen and the cursed. And Drow are inherently evil. And that's why characters like Drizzt and some of the other more famous NPC Drows are so cool, because they're rebelling and they're breaking away from the evil and redeemed.
And it's also about where they're from. Those characters are typically from a place in the game world called the Underworld. It's a place underground. They are shy away from the light. They are the repelled things, and all things that are deep in the earth are evil.
Right, exactly. Because we all know it lives in the ground.
Right, but I think it's something interesting, though. I mean, I don't know if we are going to have the answer for this, but It's interesting though that Dungeons and Dragons is the behemoth though in the world of tabletop role playing. I'm familiar with the White Wolf. I haven't really played it that much. I played the game a little bit, and I'm trying to start playing it again before the new game comes out, the video game.
The new system.
But I would definitely like to play it, and maybe we'll have a one shot or a new, maybe season 2 of our thing. We'll try a different system, and we'll all be, vampires or not.
I haven't played a good vampire game in forever, so I'm down.
But it's the mechanics of Dungeons and Dragons that you see in so many other types of tabletop role-playing games, other types of video games. The entire RPG genre is in some way, shape, or form variations of the D&D model. Even like your Final Fantasies and your JRPGs play upon a lot of these D&D style myths. So it has long legs. So I think it is still interesting, sort of to critique the structural underpinnings of this. And I like how this all focused strictly on the orc, because you could probably do this about sort of all the character races in there. But by sort of like paying attention to the orc, it gives you that time to sort of sit there and think about it and to sort of go on there. So like what Alma's drawing right now, the big guy in the middle is typical how a 5th edition orc would look like, where the more slight guy on the right who still lifts. Okay, he still lifts. He's not that weak, even if he is weaker than his teeth girlfriend.
Girlfriend.
Or not girlfriend.
Not girlfriend.
Y'all watch that show.
We watch way too much that show.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing this week when there's no episode. He's a half orc.
Hang on, Alma's kind of famous.
Oh, she is super famous.
3 times now? Twice? 3 times?
3
times.
Her art has shown up on Critical Role now. So
because it's good.
It is good.
Can't handle this. I'm aiming for 4. Let me tell you.
This is the real reason
right.
she's not putting the video up, is because at this point she can't stand the fame.
Yeah, right. She can't be seen.
Can't do it. Just can't do it. Sorry, I'm trying to add a human for comparison here too. 2 guesses.
I have no idea because I don't actually watch Critical Role.
Oh, you need to.
Well, when you give him a cat or a octopus goggles, I'll know.
He's got the holsters though.
I don't have time between watching
It's a lot of content.
And like all the other dumb things I have to watch. Plus, I have to read all these books. You guys have to read books.
Well, the books that you're reading are terrible.
Oh.
I will have you know